baseball fans. Welcome to the Locked On Crossover. Hello, baseball fans. Welcome to the Locked On Crossover. I think I may have started that a little bit too early. That's how excited I am to do the Locked On Crossover. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan from Locked On MLB. Over there, if you're watching me on the YouTubes, that's Millard Thomas of Locked On Diamondbacks. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good, Sully. How you doing today? I was on the boat earlier.
I'm doing well, but my mom's listening to this. I don't want to have any grammatical errors going on here. It's the 10th of May in the year 2022, and we are now officially in mid-May, so you can't say, well, it's April. It's early May. We are in the middle of May, and we're fast approaching the first unofficial checkpoint of the season, which is Memorial Day, which is the first time you can take a look at your team and say, okay, what the hell are we? What the hell are we? And I'll tell you what the hell, if you're a team in the National League, chances are you're exactly what you thought you were going to be. And we're going to talk about that, plus ask what it means to get a win, and then to say, dun, 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 dun. We're going back to London, and I have some thoughts about baseball fans in London, because guess what? I know a few. But you can follow us at Locked On MLB Pod, same handle for Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. Millard, where can people follow you?
At Creator Thomas 24 for my personal account, or just look up Locked On Diamondbacks on both Twitter and Instagram for the podcast handle.
Boom. Hey, first of all, I just want to say, for those of you who are really, really eager on Monday morning to hear our collaboration, as I said on the Monday podcast, we just couldn't coordinate our times.
No,
like you and I played a ton of email tag, couldn't get it done. So we'll do it on Tuesday. There you go.
Yeah, no big deal. I got my parents in town. We got graduation tomorrow. It's a busy week for me.
Mother's Day.
Yeah.
And you know what's happening this weekend? And what happened this weekend? Your pal Sully will turn half a century old.
Whoa.
5 bagel. 5-0.
The big 5-0.
That's right. I will reach 50. And I'll tell you something that's weird. I'm going to address this in the podcast I'm going to do on my birthday. But I remember the first year I really followed baseball was 1979. I was 7. You were not 7.
No, I was
you
not.
Were negative like 40 at that point.
Not even a thought.
And I was the first year I really followed baseball year in, year out. So it's kind of the origin of the rule of 7. That's where the age that people start to really formulate their first memories. And I remember I was at my grandparents' house that year, and they had a copy of Sports Illustrated. I may have mentioned this before in a previous podcast, but I may have even mentioned it to you. But they had an issue of Sports Illustrated that was called Baseball's Golden Oldies. It was like kind of this caricature cartoon on the front page of Sports Illustrated, because there were a bunch of older players who were all having outstanding seasons. Players who had already been in the league 10, 15, 20 years. Some of them even longer than that. Like Carl Yastrzemski was an all-star. Phil Niekro was a 20-game winner. Gaylord Perry was a defending Cy Young Award winner. Pete Rose was still a star. Lou Brock just got his 3,000th hit. Manny Mota was the single best pinch hitter in the history of baseball. Willie Stargell went on to win the National League Most Valuable Player that year. And they were all portrayed like on a rocking chair, and some of them had beards. Some were swinging a cane instead of a bat. Some were throwing an aspirin instead of a baseball. And they're all these old fogies. Gaylord Perry looked like he was there for the original baseball game in Cooperstown. That's how old he was. And I'm now 10 years older than all of them.
Well, Sully, you still got a great head of hair on you, and maybe we could rebrand the podcast, because I'm turning 25 this year. We could be the $quarter and the $half dollar. What do you think about that?
Oh, that's right. That's right. You take the Washington, I'll take the Kennedy.
There we go.
There you go. Well, anyway, that's not what we're talking about here. We're recording this, pulling back the curtain a little bit. We're recording this on the 9th, and there are still some games that are going on right now. Currently, right now, the Pirates are ahead of Los Angeles 1-0. The Brewers are ahead of the Reds. Most teams are ahead of the Reds. In fact, in tomorrow, just to preview tomorrow's podcast on the 11th, I talk a little bit about the Reds front office and why they have to make some decisions right now if they're going to have a key draft pick next year, because they want to make sure they hand the car keys over to the right people for that. But that's going to be tomorrow's podcast.
Little
And so
tease.
a little tease. But if you take a look right now, as of this recording, we're recording 5:17 in the PM Pacific Daylight Time. You're seeing something interesting about how the National League is unfolding right now. The teams that are in first place in each division right now, and will be no matter what happens, are the New York Mets, the Milwaukee Brewers, the Los Angeles Dodgers. Those are the three teams I picked to win their divisions.
Mm-hmm.
The Cardinals are contenders. The Padres are contenders. The Giants are contenders. And the Braves have had a little bit of a slide, but they're also on a winning streak right now. So they're
you
chipping away.
You still feel good about the reigning champ.
Yeah, the Braves, they had a little bit of a slump, but you know what? They're going to get their act together. Now, if you took a look at what most teams were talking about in terms of playoff, when most people were making their postseason predictions, I'm guaranteeing you they said the Mets or the Braves, some combination like that in the East, the Brewers in the Central, the Dodgers and Giants, some combination in the West, and throw a bone to either the Cardinals or the Padres or some other team to fill out the wild card dance card. And that's one of the reasons why my podcast I did the other day, where I said there's a sense of urgency for the Phillies because there may be only one slot for them to play in because everything else is playing out so predictably. Well, it's interesting that the National League is playing out almost exactly the way we thought it was going to play out. And the American League, as I predict a lot of people, is going to be a complete scrum where everyone seems to be in it, and it's going to be a madhouse. Well, there are two teams that are being interlopers in the predictable National League situation, and they both happen to play in the National League West, and they would be the 2022 World Series champion Colorado Rockies.
Okay.
And your Arizona Diamondbacks. Ladies and gentlemen, the Diamondbacks have a winning record. The Red Sox don't. The Braves don't.
Phillies
Cubs don't. The Mariners don't.
Phillies don't.
A lot of teams people were picking to go far don't. But ladies and gentlemen, your Diamondbacks, led by not only the 2022 Cy Young Award winner, but future Hall of Famer Zach Gallen. Buddy, D-backs, 7 of their last 10 games they put in the W column. They're pitching well. They got clutch hits. Explain yourself.
Yeah, for the first time today, I did something I haven't done all season. I went on the standings and I clicked the little wild card race tab because I had to see where the D-backs were in the wild card race. And guess what, Sully? They're only a game and a half back. I know it's still early in the season. I know we're only in the second month of baseball. It's only May 9th. But this D-back squad, it's really the Brunstrom effect because we've seen this new pitching coach. He's King Midas, whatever rotation started. He touches Sully. They turn into a Cy Young Award winner. And the D-backs,
just dropped my microphone. Sorry about that.
No worries.
I was so stunned that the Diamondbacks are off to a good start. What?
And you look at that Cy Young Award race, I know it's early in the season, but you can make the case the D-backs have, 2 of the top 4 Cy Young Award candidates, and Merrill Kelly, who leads all of Major League Baseball in ERA, then Zach Gallen. I guess they don't think he qualifies because he would be the league leader. He's got a sub-1 ERA himself. Madison Bumgarner has like 1.2 ERA. The rotation has been very good. Even Zach Davies has looked solid. Now, the offense is starting to pick up as well because they've got an infusion of new young talent with Josh Rojas returning to the lineup because of injury. And then they just called up their top prospect in their organization, Alek Thomas, who you picked, I remember, in the preseason prediction as the NL Rookie of the Year. He just got called up pretty early in the season, only second month of the season. And he already did some damage in his first game, in his debut. Double run scored. Alek Thomas in today's game, I think he's batting second in the lineup. So this D-backs team is really interesting. They just knocked off the Colorado Rockies in this weekend series. They just came off a sweep of the Miami Marlins, and they're playing the Marlins again starting Monday night. So I'm really high on the D-backs right now. The offense still needs to be a little bit more consistent. They're still in the bottom ranks of pretty much every offensive category, but Ketel Marte's on an 8-game hitting streak, finally above the Mendoza line. And right now, the D-backs are getting my hopes up. Maybe maybe a wild card run. I'm still not there yet. I'm still not on the wild card race bandwagon yet, but I think they're going to at least make this an interesting season and keep me checking that wild card race as we enter the final couple months.
All right, let me speak positively about the D-backs.
Okay, that was a long rant.
Before we come crashing back to earth.
Okay.
As of this recording, Madison Bumgarner is basically their number 3 starter.
Yeah.
And it's not because he's pitching badly. He's actually pitching quite well. Thank you very much. I like the fact that they called up Thomas. And I've been pleading with both Oakland and Boston to have them call up some of their top prospects because their offense is in a funk, is in a legitimate funk. Like the Red Sox starting pitching, the Red Sox pitching staff has been outstanding.
Yeah, it's been really good. Michael Wacha has come back to earth somehow.
I mean, you and I were going through our predictions. I did not pick the Red Sox to go to the playoffs because I didn't trust their pitching staff. If you would have told me they went on like a 16-game stretch where their team ERA was under 2 and they went like 3-13 in that stretch, like they can't get a hit. If you told me the Red Sox would go spiraling like that because they can't hit, I would say you're bananas. And that's why I'm saying call up one of your top players from the farm to spark the team, which is exactly what Arizona did. Yeah. They saw they have a dormant offense. They saw, hey, we're getting very, very good pitching. I mean, Galen has been nothing short of outstanding. Merrill Kelly has been nothing short of outstanding. And Bumgarner's holding his end of the well. And, Zach Davies has done okay.
Yeah, he was good on Saturday night. He would pitch into the 7th with no earned runs. Another good start by him.
I mean, and most teams would be fine with a guy, 6 starts in. He's averaging, 5 innings a start, having a 3-something ERA. I mean, he's pitched pretty darn well.
He's been good like 2/3 of the time. You feel like you've gotten a solid start of Zach Davies.
But save for the Seth Beer home run on opening day, the power on this team has been borderline non-existent. Dalton Varsho got a big home run the other day. They've kind of timed. It's funny. They've timed their home runs. Like David Peralta got a couple of big clutch home runs. Varsho got a big, huge hit the other day. Nick Ahmed, was it Nick Ahmed who got the home run in that game in St. Louis?
Yeah, the one you were watching with the Kelly.
And I mean, when you see the team where a team that has David Peralta and Ketel Marte, those are major league hitters on the team. So maybe they need someone to spark them. And I am so for reaching into your farm and saying, let's pull them up. I think it's one of the difference between rebuilding and tanking. Rebuilding is we don't think we're going to win this year or next year, so we're going to make the moves to make ours better 3 years from now. Is different than we're not going to play our best players so they can avoid arbitration and all this, like making decisions not based upon the quality of the team. And sometimes you have to do a strategic retreat, a Dunkirk, to build up your championship, and making decisions to not put the best product on the field for money reasons. That to me is tanking. And when you have a player who's 22 years old, playing great in the minor leagues, you put him in the major leagues and see, can he spark the club?
Yeah, the D-backs have not been afraid to play any of their young players, and Alec Thomas might not be the only guy we see this year. I don't know if we'll see Corbin Carroll, who's like their number 1 prospect in their organization. He's in AA right now, but he just had a back-to-back home run streak, so he might be getting called up to AAA pretty soon. Maybe take Alec Thomas' spot. I wouldn't be surprised if our number 1 draft pick from last year, Jordan Lawler's on the roster maybe next season or a year or two from now. Like the D-backs, their plan is to get as many young guys on this roster as possible and really see the kind of talent that they have on this team, because their messaging consistently since Mike Hazen has been there has trying to build a winner. And They're trying to do that. They always say that they don't want to tank. They don't want to do this full rebuilding project. They don't want to be, the Chicago Cubs or how the Tigers have been the last couple of years or where the Cincinnati Reds are right now. The messaging from the D-backs has always been to try a bit and build a winner. And I think they make moves sometimes where it doesn't feel like that when they trade the Eduardo Escobars and the Paul Goldschmidts. And a lot of that is more financial reasons than anything and their owner not wanting to spend the money. But they always try to put a product on the field that can at least be competitive. Like they went out there and signed Madison Bumgarner. So they go out there and make the moves on the edges with the Mark Melancons and the Jordan Luplow. So they'll make a lot of the underrated moves. Maybe they don't make the big splash plays in free agency like you want to see with the Rangers go out there and sign the Corey Seagers or whatever and the Marcus Simeons, but at least they work around the edges and they do try to put a competitive product on the field. Like you don't go out there and get a pitching coach like Brent Strom if you're not at least trying to win in the near future.
And I think that just to take a look at the squad and say that it's important to put the best players on the field from your system now that you're getting good pitching. And if you want to have a surprise season, you can leapfrog some teams with a good start and at least, maybe spark the team. And remember, the baseball team's job is to give their fans entertainment for the summer. And if they're putting together a decent team and they're winning games in the summertime, and all of a sudden, going to I was going to call it Bank One Ballpark, but going to the ballpark and seeing a good quality team at least compete, well, then maybe that's building something towards something. And then you pop the hood, you tinker with it, and you make the engine run better. Kind of like when you and I go to rockauto.com. With the ever-increasing numbers of makes and models, it's impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts you need. Why endure often pointless or seemingly intimidating questions and wait for the person behind the counter or the parts on their computer, choosing the brands that a warehouse just happens to carry? What's that about? You've got computer with access to rockauto.com at home and in your pocket. Save time and money when using Rock Auto. Why choose to spend 30, 50, even 100% more for the same parts from a chain store or a car dealership? Rock Auto is a family business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. They have everything you can need: brake parts, tail lamps, motor oil, even a new carpet. Go explore their easy-to-use website today to find the solution for your auto parts need. Go to rockauto.com right now. See all the parts available for your car or truck. Right, Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box so they know that we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices. All the parts your car will ever need are at rockauto.com. Thanks so much for making Locked On MLB your first listen. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Now podcast. Recap of Major League Baseball games with analysis from our local expert. Taking fans through the season like no other network, free and available wherever you get your podcasts. We're here doing our Locked On crossover with Millard Thomas of the surprising Arizona Diamondbacks.
Oh, yeah.
An event happened on Monday afternoon. The Yankees and the Texas Rangers were finishing up their series where one of the games had been rained out. So they played an early game. And Nestor Cortes has become one of the strangest, and this is coming from a classic Yankee hater, feel-good stories in baseball. This is a guy who was not supposed to be a big star in baseball, and he is so far he's playing like an all-star.
Yeah, would you? Yeah, because with like both of the New York teams playing well right now, the Mets have like their unknown pitcher right now in Tyler McGill, who's kind of emerged. Nestor Cortes is kind of like the Mets version of Tyler McGill right now for what he's doing for that rotation.
And this is a guy who got bounced out. He played for the Orioles in 2018. He had a cameo with the Yankees in 2019. He played for Seattle during the COVID season. He came up last year and pitched well. He struck out 103 batters in 93 innings and had a good ERA of 2.90. But this year, he's unbelievable. He's been absolutely unbelievable. And he took a no-hitter into the 8th inning. And this, again, a journeyman with a great mustache, has lowered his ERA to 1.41. He has struck out 42 batters in 32 innings. That's not bad. His ERA is low, and he has been a godsend for the Yankees rotation, who the Yankees pitching has been remarkable so far as they've shot to the front. And he took a no-hitter into the 8th inning. The Rangers finally got a hit, but the Yankees went on to win the game with a run in the 8th inning.
Yeah.
And Cortez was brilliant.
Yeah, do you think Cortez is probably their number 2 starter right now? I mean, Jordan Montgomery's still there. He's been pitching pretty well. They still got Jameson Taillon. But the way Nestor Cortez is pitching, he's looked pretty good because back when Ketel Marte, before he signed the contract extension, we had all the Marte to the Yankees rumors. And Nestor Cortez was someone that was high on my trade target list if it came to that moment where the D-backs potentially traded Ketel Marte to the Yankees. Nestor Cortez was someone that was high on my trade target list because he was someone that was really young and pitched really well last season. Everyone wants the blue chippers Volpe, and that would have been nice. But sometimes I like to see the young talent already on the major league level, already showing flashes. Sometimes it's hard to, hope and pray that the blue chip prospect, actually materializes into a ceiling. Sometimes I'll just take the guy who's already young and showing flashes on the major league level, even if he was like the 18th best prospect in someone's organization.
Well, remember, Kyle Drabeck was supposed to be the great piece when the Blue Jays and Phillies made the Roy Halladay trade. He didn't amount to gotch. There's been a bunch of times where you see a player who was like the blue chipper in a trade and not amount to anything. Sometimes you're better off. Sometimes you're just better off getting a major league player as opposed to Matt Laporta, who was the big chip when the Indians traded away CC Sabathia to Milwaukee. They got Matt Laporta, and it's like they whiffed. Laporta was supposed to be a great, huge prospect. Doesn't always work out. Sometimes you're better off getting a proven major league player, rather than banking on the possibility of promise.
They usually never work out. I mean, I've done a ton of pods on my podcast where I've broken down, gone through the history of looking through all the old trades of superstar trades and seeing what those teams that traded their superstar, what they got back in return. A lot of them would get 3 top 100 prospects back, or 3 of the top 5 prospects back from someone's organization. And a lot of those times, those prospects literally didn't amount to anything. Sometimes it would be major league players for like 2 seasons or less. A lot of the times it would be like the Lewis Brinsons types who are trying on the major league level for 4 to 5 years, and you're just like, maybe this is someone that just not as good as we thought. If you're lucky and they don't hit their ceiling, maybe they turn to a Juraxen Profar where they're still a solid major leaguer, even though they're not the number 1 prospect like we hope to be. But a lot of times they end up just disappointing. So guys like Profar and Will Myers, they're kind of like the positive side of prospects who are bust, because a lot of these prospects who are bust, they're not even in Major League Baseball after 3 to 4 years.
Now, here's one thing, though. Nestor Cortez is their ace is still Garrett Cole, and Garrett Cole pitched beautifully the other day. He had like 1 or 2 bad outings, but he's been very good recently. Mm-hmm. So either he's found his stuff or found some spider tack, whatever's going on.
Something.
The Yankees got the good Garrett Cole back. And remember Garrett Cole, people were talking about Garrett Cole just because he wet the bed in the wild card game last year. He was a top 3 Cy Young candidate last year. He had a fine season last year. And has been a very good signing for the Yankees. Nestor Cortez has been, if you're going to say Cole has earned the right to be called the ace, I'm fine with that. Here's the interesting thing. Even with the near no-hitter, he has 1 more win than me. His record is 1-1. And the win category, the win statistic, we may need to finally just put that to bed. Because think about this game that was played this afternoon in the Bronx. Cortez pitched 7 1/3 innings, let up 1 hit, walked 4, struck out 11, no runs. He threw 103 pitches. Clay Holmes came out. He threw 4 pitches. And then Chapman came out. He let up a hit, but threw a scoreless inning in the 9th and got the save. Holmes got the win. Cole Holmes is 4-0. He threw 4 pitches. Cortez threw a masterpiece into the 8th, and Holmes is credited with the win. What does that stat even represent? It doesn't represent that he pitched the best, the most critical parts. Mm-mm. None of them. 0. And I was both, as a young'un, I was in the ahead of the curve in understanding that wins are overrated in the 80s, back when they basically gave the Cy Young Award winner to whoever had the most wins. That was the criteria. And like there was one year Bob Welch had more wins than Dave Stewart on the A's. So Bob Welch won the Cy Young Award, but Dave Stewart was the number one pitcher on the team. When it came to the playoffs, they handed the ball to Dave Stewart. So wait, why wouldn't you hand it to the best pitcher? Is it the Cy Young Award the best pitcher of the league? He wasn't even the best pitcher on his own team. But it was just a win total. And I remember in 1987, when you still were not a glimmer in anyone's eyes.
No, unfortunately.
I was in high school, and I remember saying, I thought Nolan Ryan should win. Now, Nolan Ryan, who never won a Cy Young Award in his career, okay? But I remember talking to some friends of mine in 1987 saying, I think Nolan Ryan should win the Cy Young Award. And I was looked upon as if I said, I believe we should create mutant lobsters. That was looked upon as if I was a crazy person by my friends. And he went that year, Nolan Ryan's record was, I'm scrolling at baseballreference.com, it's the universal website, the history of planet Earth. His record, someone's washing my door window behind me for those of you watching on YouTube. His record was 8-16. 8-16. So how could he be? What are we even talking about? He had to lose. And my friends, he went 8-16. I'm going to be the Cy Young Award winner. Well, he struck out 270 batters in 211 and 2/3 innings. That's the best in baseball that year, 270. He had the lowest ERA in the National League. So he had the lowest ERA and the lowest number and the highest number of strikeouts, which back in 1987, there were no advanced stats, or if they were, we didn't know them.
Yeah.
But that was what we went by. That was the criteria that we went by. Now, if you went by WAR, he had a 5.4 WAR. He had the best walks per 9 innings. He had the best strikeouts per 9 innings. He had there were like some of the advanced stats that didn't exist back then. He had the best in the league. And I remember saying, but he had the best year, even though he didn't win the most games because the Astros that year couldn't hit. He lost a bunch of games, 1-0. No, you got to give it to Rick Sutcliffe. He won 18 games. Now, for a long time, I defended the win stat because I said, okay, it's not a good predictive stat. It's not a good stat to sort of say if I'm building a team, like, okay, what am I looking for in a pitcher? The wins don't help there. But in terms of describing and the storytelling of the game, I thought it was a good descriptive stat. I'm beginning to back off of that.
Yeah.
Because Clay Holmes's 4 pitches that he threw don't really describe what happened in that game.
Yeah, I don't get how someone could just come in for 4 pitches and get the win. I feel like the win needs to be amended to where maybe it can only be awarded to the person who started the game, and maybe with the criteria, you have to go 5 innings or whatever. The same way there's a criteria for a quality start, there's a criteria for a win, and it can only be awarded to the starting pitcher because we knew wins were meaningless. I mean, you said back in the 80s. I mean, just in my lifetime, when I saw Rick Porcello win a Cy Young Award back in like 2016 because he led the American League in wins with 22, that was the only reason he won the Cy Young Award that season. Maybe not the only reason. I mean, he had over 200 innings pitched, but it was not better than like Justin Verlander or whatever that season. And Rick Porcello, I never considered like a number 1 starter, a front line starter. So to see Rick Porcello get 22 wins in the Cy Young absolutely blew my mind. So maybe the stat needs to be amended to where it can only be awarded to starters. And it also, maybe we should take the stat out of when we're talking about the triple crown for these pitchers. Maybe it should be ERA, strikeouts, and innings pitched, and not wins, because wins is quite honestly the most meaningful stat. And we see guys like DeGrom never have good win total just because they're always on crappy teams, even though they've been the best pitchers. And then guys like Rick Porcello, they could be on the best team in baseball and rack up 20 wins, even though they're probably a mid-rotation starter.
Bartolo Colon won the Cy Young Award in 2005.
Okay, a long time ago.
He led the league in wins that year. He led the league in nothing else. Now, if we're going to be, I'm not someone who makes WAR the end-all be-all in terms of a statistic. But I will point out that he didn't crack the top 10 of WAR for pitchers in the American League that year. Mark Burley and Johan Santana both towered over Bartolo Colon in almost every single category. And yet Colon won the Cy Young Award because
Even
he
had
won
a few
21
MVP.
games.
Cologne even had a few MVP votes.
Yeah, because and again, he had a good season. I'm not saying he was bad. You know, he threw 222 innings and at an ERA of 3.48 during the steroid era. So, of which we found out later, Bartolo Colon was part of. Because he did test positive for performance-enhancing drugs and also tested positive for pie. But the fact of the matter is, there would not have been a person with even one brain cell firing in his head that would rather have had Bartolo Colon over Johan Santana that year. And the only thing Colon had over Santana was the fact that Santana won 16 games and Colon won 21. Now, I'm not going to complain that badly because I have what is called the Cohen brothers rule, which is if you've already won a major award, I can't complain when you don't win it again.
Okay.
And Santana won 2 Cy Young awards in his career. So I'm not going to cry bloody murder that he didn't make it 3. Okay. But that being said, there's the Cy Young Award given to Bob Welch in 1990 and Bartolo Colon in 2005. Their only qualification was the win total.
Yeah, Johan, it says he led in WAR, strikeouts, ERA plus, and WHIP that season. He probably should have.
Santana
did.
Not Santana, not Colon. Santana.
Oh, yeah. I hope I didn't say Bartolo. Yeah, Santana did. So he basically led the American League or National League in 4 different categories. Or the American League. He was with the Twins at the time in 4 different categories, while Colon literally just led in wins, like you said. So it is ridiculous that things like this have happened in the past. Like, even though we didn't have the advanced stats, there's no StatCast, we did have more than just wins to look at. Like, we still have the traditional stats with the ERAs and everything else. So I don't know why we were so fixated on wins. I don't know why as a society and as baseball fans, and it wasn't like everyone, like you said, as a young person back watching baseball in the 80s, you even realized like wins wasn't a very, important stat. So why haven't the writers been able to catch up with the rest of society with how wins aren't that important?
Well, I think it came to a head when Felix Hernandez won the Cy Young Award with a 13-12 record. And there were certain voters saying, well, wait a minute, how could you? He barely was over 500. And every other category, he led the league in, except wins. I remember, I think at one point wins and losses meant more when you had more ace pitchers throwing complete games. And you can sort of point to, when you had the great pitcher eras of the 60s where, the Koufaxes would go up against the Bunnings or the Marichals or the Perrys or the Gibsons or the Seavers or whomever. And actually Koufax didn't go up against Seaver. That's a bad example. But you know what I mean? That there was a certain sort of the mano-a-mano allure of that. I cannot think of a single example of the unreliability of the win as a metric as Harvey Haddix. Do you know who Harvey Haddix is?
I have no idea.
Harvey Haddix pitched for the Cardinals and the Pirates in the 50s and 60s. I'm going to now describe 2 games that Harvey Haddix pitched. One, he pitched a perfect game. 27 up, 27 down. But the Pirates couldn't score for him. So he took that perfect game. He was perfect in the 10th. He was perfect in the 11th. He was perfect in the 12th. Then the Pirates made an error in the 13th. We were still pitching, by the way. And then allowed a double. So he pitched 12 perfect innings before allowing an unearned run. Okay? That's one game he pitched. Another game he pitched was Game 7 of the World Series, where he came in with the tying run aboard and he let up a couple of hits and there was a wild freak play and he blew the save. He blew the save that would have clinched Game 7 of the World Series. He got the win in one of those games and the loss in the other. He got the win in the game where he blew the lead in Game 7 of the World Series. He got the loss in the game where he threw 12 perfect innings before allowing an unearned run on one hit. If you say he went, how did the pitcher go? He went 12 and 2/3 innings, let up one hit and one unearned run. Pitch better next time. How'd you do? Well, I blew the lead that would have clinched the World Series. Good job. You won, folks. And especially now when you have pitchers throwing 5 innings and then there's a parade of pitchers throwing 1 inning. What if you get the lead in the 6th or 7th? One of the parade of guys who throws 1 inning gets the win and the guy gets – that doesn't tell you anything. I think what they should list instead of the win-loss record is they should show you an average start. An average start of him is 5 innings, 2 runs, 5 – whatever it is. That tells you something.
Smart. That is a lot smarter. And for Haddix, maybe he would have won that perfect game if he had the runner on second in extra rule, because maybe the game would have ended a little bit sooner for Haddix. So he was just born too early, Sully. He was born in the wrong era. Sorry,
F you. Imagine if he threw that perfect game and there was a runner on second and then he balked. And then next thing you know, he loses the game because of a balk and a balk or a pass ball. You're no way you're going to sell me. No way you're going to sell me that with this the extra inning the thing. The runner? What do you do? What is that called? The
runner on second.
Ghost runner on second. And let me tell you something. If you throw 12 perfect innings, what are the chances of you going to lose that game? That's like the most surefire bet you can have in the world. And if you're going to make any bets, go to BetOnline. Our partners at BetOnline continue to be the #1 source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest odds, news, sports developments, including this year's basketball playoffs, Major League Baseball scores, fights, even next season's NLF futures. Is that correct? Is that supposed to be NFL? No, I'm not reading copy. This is all coming off the top of my head. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting wagering information, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more, including the NLF. Head to the website today to use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline, it's where the game starts. Did I just read a typo?
I thought you were trying to say NFT, Sully. I thought we were getting into a new venture here.
Yeah. You know I love my NFTs.
Yeah, your crypto games.
It says NLF. Pal Sully read NLF. Yeah. I was on autopilot.
I would have done the same. I would have done the same, Sully. I haven't read that new copy.
I read it. I read the copy. So make sure to read the copy. Pulling back the curtain a little bit here. We read copy here. Hey, one last thing I want to bring up. I'm not a huge fan of baseball games, regular season games being played overseas because it's weird.
Mm-hmm.
It's weird for the players. It's weird for the fans. I think it's terrible when they start the season. Like they started 1 year in Australia. They started 1 year in Japan. I hate that they start the season because it's like, shh, while you're asleep, we started the baseball season. Don't wake up. Major League Baseball is being played. A few years ago, the Red Sox and the Yankees played a pair of games in London, and I think the average score was 17-16. It was not a pitcher's paradise in London. Red Sox lost both of those games, but the games were packed, absolutely packed. And it looks like they're going to do it again. It looks like they're in 2023, 2024, and 2025. They're going to be playing not exhibition games, but actual regular season games in London. I have some thoughts on this, but before I go into it, I want to hear what you think about bringing baseball back to Britannia.
Yeah, my thoughts is, should I have strong thoughts on this? Because I guess it's cool to see baseball be expanded overseas, but it's like you said, why should the average or avid baseball fan care about games being played overseas. Like, it's very early start times. Like, I would love to go see a game in London. That sounds like a very cool experience. But as long as I'm here in America and the games are starting in London, if a D-back game starts in London, I'm probably missing that game. Like, I don't know how Lockdown Marlins host Peter Pratt does it, because he lives in the UK, and trying to do a crossover with him, we've been trying to link up. It is impossible living on the West Coast trying to link up with Peter Pratt. So shout out you, Lockdown Marlins host, because I don't know how you do it. So for the average baseball fan, like, why should I care about games being played over in London? Like, it's cool, extra exposure for the game, but it's not like we're going to see that money. Are they going to use that money to market the players in America better? Are they going to use it to upgrade their facilities so we can have the best in-game experience? Are we going to make the game better? How about we focus on growing the game here, increasing exposure in America before we start increasing exposure in Europe and other countries? Because I feel like the game needs to grow here more on American soil before it grows overseas.
I can see that. I went to London a few years ago when I was working for a tech company, and I got to meet the man who was the head of the British Baseball Federation. Talked with a couple of players. I got to meet Mark Blakemore, who may very well be listening to this, is a big Yankee fan living in London. These aren't expatriates; these are natives of the UK who are becoming big baseball fans. I think it's strange when you play these games, but I talked to a couple people who were at the games in London, and they were unqualified successes in terms of the fans that were there, the experience of there, and seeing the Red Sox and the Yankees playing there. It was undeniable that it was a success. There are a lot of Yankee fans and a lot of Met fans who live in London. I think there's probably a lot of Red Sox fans living in Ireland, and for obvious reasons. I am convinced the next Mike Trout exists in a country that we're not thinking about.
Okay.
I'm convinced that the next Pedro Martinez, the next Barry Bonds, the next Barry Larkin, whomever it is could be playing in a country that is not putting together baseball teams right now. And I'm all for making Major League Baseball the hub for the best players from across the world. And I want to open up some. We've seen some players, a trickle of players who have come out of Holland. Hall of Famer Bert Blyleven was born in Holland. And I remember the Red Sox had a pitcher named Win Remeschwal who pitched in the Dutch national team, who played a handful of games for the Red Sox in the 80s. At one point, like the Dominican and Puerto Rico may have seemed exotic for places to find baseball players, and now it's taken for granted. I would love to tap into Europe. I'd love to tap into parts of Asia. I'd love to tap into Africa. I'd love to tap into places where we've never seen players come before. I'd love to see baseball continue to grow in some of these places. Yeah, they got to build up they have to recapture the American audience as well. I think you can do more than one thing. Yeah. And I think that baseball can be successful in Europe. I think baseball, there's a fascination with American culture in Europe. Heck, if they could build a Disneyland in France, I think we can build a couple of baseball parks there. And I would love to. It was kind of the hope of the World Baseball Classic, is that it would spark interest in in some countries that would not normally be having Major League Baseball. And I would love to see, there are minor leagues in Italy and a couple other countries in Europe. I just like to see that expand and start to see players emerge from there. And maybe they'll emerge from there because there are obviously people there who have the talent to play Major League Baseball. They're just not playing baseball.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. Are we going to see these major league teams basically like own youth clubs overseas, like kind of how soccer does it, where these are basically pipelines for these young players, U16 teams where you have all these young players on it, and maybe they eventually just, grow into major leaguers, and then I guess you could draft them out these youth clubs as well. So it would be interesting. I don't know if there would be straight pipelines or you could just sign them to your team, then the Yankees could own that prospect forever. And once they mature enough, they could just graduate them basically to major league level. I don't know all the particulars of that or anything like that, but I guess seeing more players be picked out of, crevices of around the world, that would be interesting and cool to see. But in terms of my viewership as a fan, I don't care about baseball being played overseas. It would just be cool if we got more players from overseas that could actually help the sport. I don't know if I want to see more minor league levels because I already feel like there's too many farm systems in Major League Baseball. Like, we have a problem paying our players. Well, maybe we should cut some of these minor league teams because we have so many levels, and I just feel like there's too much minor league teams.
Well, maybe be like independent leagues. Because there are lots of independent leagues. Independent leagues in Germany and the thing is, I would like it worked in London. I'd like to see maybe try it in Berlin, try it in Paris, try it in Italy. I'd like to maybe see now. Maybe they're trying to put the stake in the ground in England. I've said for years that if the Red Sox had a native of Ireland on their team, they would not be able to keep that shirt on the shelf. That would just be flying off. Like if there was a guy, Seamus O'Duffy from County Cork played for the Red Sox, they'd be able to sign Rafael Devers to a 10-year extension based only on the jersey sold for Seamus O'Duffy. I want to see the best players in the world playing Major League Baseball. And I want to see baseball expand throughout the world because I think that's the next great frontier. But the next great frontier for us is to be doing a lockdown crossover every darn week. Hey, Millard Thomas of your winning Arizona Diamondbacks, who currently have a better chance to go to the postseason than the defending World Series champion Atlanta Braves or the Boston Red Sox. How does it feel?
Feels good. It feels damn good. After last season, the 52-win season, all-time road losing streak, it feels good to watch this team right now win. But I think at this point of last season, the D-backs also had like a slightly above 500 record. So let's not fall into our old habits, D-backs. Let's keep it going, please.
Well, what I'm saying is that I've had you on here. I figure if we have an opportunity to talk positively about the D-backs. I don't want that to go by the wayside because if we're still doing this in June and August and September, and the D-backs have slid back, like, so who do you think you're going to draft?
That's when you got to bring in Lindsey Crosby. I don't know nothing about the draft.
Oh, there you go. Well, hey, you know a lot about the Diamondbacks. Tell people where they can find you.
Hey, at Creator Thomas 24 for my personal account, or look up Locked On Diamondbacks to both Twitter and Instagram for the podcast handle.
And you can follow us at Locked On MLB Pod, same handle for Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. Going overseas and going into the desert and finding winners, whether it's in Arizona or in London. But they're winners, but doesn't mean they got the win. This is the Locked On crossover for the 10th day of May. Let's fist pump right here.